Welcome to our live this week with my beloved Shiva Rajaya joining us. Welcome, my love.
Hey, hi everybody.
And this week we'll be speaking on a topic around tantric relationship magic. And I think one of the most strongest kind of resonant energies in our relationship is mysticism and magic. So we're really going to speak into some key aspects of relationship that in our dynamic has brought deep, deep levels of harmony, of intimacy, of friendships, and of navigating depths that both of us haven't been to in relationships before. So thanks for being here.
It's a
Would you share
pleasure.
a little bit about yourself, who you are, what your background is?
Yeah, I'm right now in Bali. I've been here for 10 years and I've been in the spiritual field for more than 30 years, exploring all sorts of traditions. And the Tantra has been an essential part of my life for the last 20 years or more. And yeah, I've been coaching for 20 years as well. Launched my coaching practice in 2002. And I'm right now partnering with this beautiful goddess on this beautiful tantric journey together. We were together already yeah, 3, 4 years ago, right? For a period of
Mm.
6 months. And now we decided to jump into another wave and it's all super exciting. Yeah,
Yeah,
beautiful, excited to be here.
absolutely. And yeah, so the elements that we're going to speak in today, and there's 8 of them, we'll try our best to get through them all, I think really reflect the expansion, the commitment to expansion within our own beings that then feeds into the relationship. So when we were together 3 or 4 years ago, it was still by far the best relationship I'd had to date, but there were things that didn't quite fit in terms of compatibility and timing. And so then we had this 3-year gap in our relationship, and I think that's what I love. There's so many things I love about you, but one of the things I love the most is your commitment to expanding and evolving and reflecting and shadow work and really looking at the ways to enhance joy, intimacy, pleasure, and aliveness. And yeah, that's what made it entirely possible for us to come together again, still as the same people, but such a deeper layer of our being that was more accessible in our partnering.
Yeah, totally. I can see how much we matured over the last few years, and I can totally reflect those qualities back to you. I have the feeling that when we are together, I see a woman who is really dedicated to expand, to evolve, to check the places where life can be optimized one step further. And it's something that reflects in all aspects of your life. So that's something that we really have in common. It is the idea of keep on expanding, reaching beyond the limits of anything that we experience, and also daring to take some risks to experiment with things that we didn't touch on before. So this is this is why it's such an exciting adventure, because we are both expanding each other so much into this journey. Yeah,
Mm, absolutely.
beautiful.
And so we might just start with what is tantric relationship magic? And I love, like, when I think about magic, for me it's like it's that aligning our intention, our thoughts, beliefs, and our actions to create change in one's perception or one's reality. And when you mix that intentionality and really working with beliefs and shadow thoughts that come in and expansive thoughts, and when we work with intentionality, which we can do together or ourselves, and action of how to bring in connection in a very intentional way, and you do that with a tantric element that says, hey, both pain and pleasure are welcome in this human experience. And, we are what we think, what we believe, and how we behave. Then you put them together and we have tantric relationship magic.
Yes, exactly. It works fantastically, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, the way I would define it is Tantra is a path of mysticism, right? And it's a path of awakening. It's a complete path of life mastery. That's the way I put it. So when we do that together, two beings coming together, like Tara and myself, when we come together, it's like we're dedicating the space um, to awakening, right? To going one step further into the awakening of our journeys. And it's also a path of optimization, a path of life mastery. And it's also a mystical path. It means that we are using mantras a lot. We're using sacred space. If you go and visit Tara's room, you will see that there is deities everywhere. It's colored. It's very beautiful. It's intentionally designed to create temple space. And the place where I am over here, if you notice it in the background, there's mantras everywhere. There is sacred geometry. The temple itself is another as a sacred geometry space. So this mystical vibration that we bring into the relationship is an essential part of relating to each other, right? And so what this means is that when we come together, instead of just being Tara and myself, then we are really calling in a spirit, which is the spirit of Tantra or the Tantric temple. And so it feels to me that when we're relating, we are being guided as well very precisely into the expansion, into the expansion of our realities. So this idea that there is a third intelligence involved over here is not just Tara and myself. That's something that is in my mind all the time. When Tara speaks, I go like I'm listening deep. Say, where is her voice coming from? What is she really trying to transmit into the field? And the same the other way around. We are very intentionally listening to be guided in profound ways, right? So this idea of mystical vibration is very present in our dynamics.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like the elements that we're going to speak into today, which is around magnetism, presence, conscious listening, emotional maturity, playfulness, sovereignty, and devotion, which we'll dive into in just a moment. Behind each of them is, for me, the foundations of Tantra that says inner union within ourselves, and that wholeness within is really what underpins our ability to show up in the second foundation, which is sacred union with the beloved.
Mm-hmm.
So as we speak into these areas, you'll probably see that a lot of them have to do with our own inner journey that we're really committed to and prioritize, which then flows into the outer union between the two of us.
Absolutely. These are two aspects that are essential. It comes in the field of sovereignty, right, that we're going to talk about. The idea that while we are joining our spirits and our souls into this beautiful union, then we don't lose our sovereignty and our own inner union and connection with our own spirits, our own, for myself, my feminine energy, and for Tara, her masculine power, and all the forces that are sponsoring our revolutions. So it's definitely an essential aspect of the totally agree with you with that.
That's it. Well, let's jump in.
Yes.
And we might do this in a bit of a different order, but I'd love to start with presence. And Matisse and Raven did a live last week, I believe, where he came in and was talking about presence. And when I was re-listening to it a little while ago, so much of her experience with Matisse and his presence is what I experienced with you.
Mm-hmm.
And by far, this is the most safest, nurturing, and worshipful relationship that I've been in. And your presence allows me to speak authentically and what I'm feeling and honestly in ways that I haven't been able to before, which I used to judge in myself, being like, oh, I can't speak up because of fear of losing love. And there was that. And the body knows, and my body knows that I'm very safe with you because you hold such incredible presence for whatever my experience is, whatever my sharing is, and whatever our togetherness kind of brings in the Shakti,
Mm-hmm.
Shakti
Absolutely.
of life. So, yeah, I'd love for you to just share a bit about how you experience presence in your being in relationship
Mm.
with the feminine.
Yeah, beautiful. So the imagine that I have all this mind potential, right? It's like imagine that this is 100% of my mind potential, all the energy that is circulating through me, all the thoughts, all the emotions, absolutely everything that is right there. So when I'm in the presence of Tara and we're having, for instance, a conversation or engaging into a sensual experience, I want as much as possible 80, 90, or 100% of my energy to be invested in that. It's an emotional investment, right? If you're listening to
Mm,
this podcast, maybe you have experience in the past connecting sensually with somebody and feeling that the person is not really present, not really emotionally invested in the connection. Right? We want emotional connection. We want to feel the other person's emotions, and what we mean by that, feel that person's mind, not just their physical body. And so I believe that that this is one of the core skills in connection and being able to really invest ourselves in that. And what this means on a practical level, it's a few very simple things. It's like kill distractions, right? The cell
mm,
phone is off. We are not jumping on our cell phone anytime we have a date. We are not like being distracted by social media. We are doing that together, and we really create a sacred space together. And but the core element is this: it is like being really focused on each other, being really creating this space, which is a together space. If we're on a date, if we are having a sensual experience, if we're making love, it's like being fully
mm,
there. And it's a skill to practice, of course. It's something to engage into. Yeah, another element that is very important in the presence is the attunement, right? It's like constantly, when I have you in my field, I'm constantly watching you, listening to the cues, listening to your emotional, energetic response, what's happening on a body language level. So there is a high degree of attunement so that I can really feel into where you're at. You know, if I touch your body,
mm,
how you're going to respond to that, how you're going to be reacting to my touch. Is this the right moment to touch you in that way or not? And then
mm,
so really the I think that together with presence is the attunement element is really fundamental in creating this chemistry, right?
absolutely. Yeah. And the way that I experience you as well is, and just from knowing my own mind, I think that that other part of presence and being like just clearing of distractions and showing up is also very much an internal job as well.
Mm-hmm.
And what I notice about you just in general in life, not just in relationship, is how good you are at the thoughts that can be like zing, zoom, zoom, buzzing around, whether it's about relationship, whether it's about other aspects of your life, to keep your attention and presence like with your breath, with the present moment, and that when those inception thoughts come in, you can watch them and actually not engage with them and get carried off on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like so many students and couples that I work with, they're just caught in the mind story and they're not being present with what's actually deeper than just the buzzing mind.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's so
Absolutely.
cool about your presence is very rarely do we go into story of the buzzing.
Yes.
And if we do, we catch it really quickly. And
Yeah.
then we come back to the here and now and to what's deeper than the thoughts, which is like the vulnerability and the truth that sits beneath.
Absolutely. I love how also the way you engage yourself. One of the qualities that I appreciate in your presence, in the quality of your presence, and is something that is a quality that I encourage everybody to start practicing. It's the level of attunement that you have to yourself, right? There has been quite a few times in our relating where you go like, listen, Shiva, I'm just noticing a contraction in my field, right? I'm noticing that there is something that is a little bit out of balance in my system. So it's not just like attunement to the other person or presence towards the other person, it's presence with ourselves as well. And you're really a master of that because anytime you notice that there is some form of, dissonance coming into the field, then instead of letting it pass, you are going to give it some attention and then bring it into the field because it's present in the field. So instead of being distracted by things or getting bypassing it, you go like, no, this is a level of presence. So it's not just presence towards the other person; it's presence with ourselves as well. Once if you notice that your body is a bit tense, you're going to shake or do something or do some sound, and so this is a profound level of attunement with your own needs as well. And that really expands our field, because suddenly it's no longer, it brings really to the present moment.
Amazing. Well, so the next one is magnetism, um, which is polarity. It's what, like, that chemistry that pulls us together, and so many couples struggle with maintaining that chemistry. And if I was to put it down to kind of two words, it would be gratitude and appreciation,
Mm-hmm.
or glimmering, as we call it. And I've actually just realized, like, so far in the live, that's what we've been doing. We've just been complimenting each other and going, oh, this is what I love about you, and this is what I love about you. And I feel like we're doing that all day long, just as a natural process of having gratitude for where beauty is, whether it's the people we're around, the food we eat, with each other. But particularly with each other, it's a whole new level of mastery, and it's just self-feeding, and self-fulfilling. And I love how, if we have a date night, then you might say to me at the end of it, what's 5 things that you loved about tonight? And where attention goes, energy flows. So it's no wonder, that the romance period can end, and then everyone's like, oh, I don't feel in love, and I miss that high. It's like, yeah, it needs feeding, it needs sustaining. And the more you bring your energy and attention to that, then the less your energy and attention is going into, the nitpicking and the criticizing.
Oh, absolutely. This is such a brilliant explanation, and a brilliant way to put it, in the way we're experiencing it. Very often in couples, what's going to happen is, like, I, as a man, I'm going to look at my girlfriend and say, oh, I love you. I don't have to repeat it. I don't have to say it. I don't have to explain it. And then at some point, my girlfriend might do something that is uncomfortable to me, and then I'm going to point out to that, and then criticize it, or bring an element that is going to create contraction, right? Criticism is, we can call that a little bit of a toxic conversation, or toxic speech pattern. It's not toxic always. Sometimes it's useful, but very often it's going to hurt us. It's going to create a kind of contraction rather than opening. If somebody starts attacking me, then most of the times I'm going to kind of start shutting down a little bit in defensive mode, right? So this is what tends to happen. The patterns in relationships very often are going to start pointing more and more towards the things that are not working, towards the shadows, towards the criticism, towards other aspects that might not be fully aligned. And so what we are practicing here with Tara, and it's an advice that I give you, I really encourage you to keep on to do that way, way more. It's like the glorification of the other person. If you would see our text messages, it's constant. I'm bragging about you. You're bragging about me. You are amazing. You're fantastic. I love what you're doing. And the fact that we already said it 20 times today, it doesn't stop us from keep on saying it a few more times. And it works. This is the thing that is incredible. It is that the more we do that, the more we become comfortable with that, and the more it becomes natural way of communicating. And so if you're not used to that, what I encourage you to do is try this, okay? It's like, you can make it as a practice. 5 things I love about you. 5 things that really touch me about you. 5 things I notice about you. 5 beautiful things about your life. And then you do that as a practice in the morning. Just 5 minutes, you share those 5 things towards each other, and then you make it natural into your life. And then you start moving into free flow. Free flow means that you're practicing that all the time. And that doesn't mean that we don't talk about practical things and other things, but at least this is in the background, like this is the default resonance that we have with each other. And it's freaking exciting. Anytime I receive a message from Tara, it's just like, oh my God, what is she going to say now? It's like, what kind of love is she going? And it's always a loving message. We have this agreement that we don't process via text message, right? So it's always, we create really a safe space with that. But it's like, it's exciting. It brings such a thrill into a relationship to know that there is somebody out there who appreciates me, and the ability to give love into this woman is just like, it's mind blowing. I want this woman to feel like my queen, like, wow, you're such a goddess, you're beautiful, you're amazing, you're exciting, so that's something that we keep on bringing into the relationship a lot. We are almost like hopelessly romantic on that level, right?
And I remember when I first came into Tantra and this Tantra community, how everyone was complimenting me. And it's become a culture now that is not mainstream culture at all. And
Mhm.
naturally, that started to help me expand into really deeply loving myself. And then and now it's like I can't not see the beauty in people. I'll compliment complete strangers because I can't help but share it.
Exactly.
And I think what happens in so many relationships is just complacency. It's like we both just assume that they're going to be there forever, and that they know that we love each other. But it's like a relationship is its own organism. So we're an individual organism, and then the relationship is an organism. And just like we need sustaining and feeding and self-love and nurture, so does the relationship.
Mhm.
And as I said, where attention goes, energy flows. So it's such a beautiful way to infuse the relationship with sparkles and magic,
Absolutely.
which actually creates more safety for then the deeper, darker aspects that come out in relationships. So I'm not talking about bypass and be like, everything's amazing when it's not. If
Mhm.
everything's not amazing, then you speak into that very honestly, but you've kind of got this overflow of love and adoration, and like the relationship bank balance is high, so that when you can dive into, the natural gritty parts of the relationship, there's a beautiful container for that.
Absolutely. This is so beautiful. And something that we can say as well, it is that very often when we talk about compliment, saying I love you to somebody, sometimes it can feel shallow, right? To some people, it's like, oh, I love you. Okay, we said it 100 times already, but it's not like that. There is an emotional intensity behind it. I love you. I adore you. You are beautiful, right? So we embody this quality with something that is going to be impactful into the other person. And there is another element that is really important. It is that the magnetic energy that we can create is not just through words, it's through touch as well, through love making. There is like all sorts of things that we do to each other, through affectionate, conversations, through also, for instance, yesterday I made food for you, right? As an affectionate thing, I know how to magnetize these women's, you know, how
Feed me.
feed me. She says, I'm hungry. I go like, I'm going to pour my heart into creating a delicious dish for her. This is also part of the magnetic, engaging into projects together or engaging into flowing. Like, for instance, if we come up with an idea, then opening up to the possibility of this idea. If if Tara goes like, I want to go to the beach, I say, maybe we should go to the beach today. Let's do it. Let's try. Let's explore. So being really open instead of blocking the energy, right? So if in your field you go like, the question that you can ask yourself is, how magnetic am I in the relationship? Am I creating a field of attraction towards my partner, or am I blocking, resenting, you know, and a lot of it has to do with our mindsets. It's like, how do we look at each other? So it's a really vast topic on how to create magnetic frequency in the relationship and in ourselves.
Mm,
But definitely a top one to look into. Yeah.
definitely. Absolutely. Yeah, each of these topics could be a one day workshop.
Oh, for sure. When I was doing my my meetings over there, the mix group, we covered this topic over 4 or 5 weeks. It was just magnetism, the different aspect of creating magnetism in the relationship. So it's a really big, really vast topic.
Amazing. All right, so let's speak briefly into conscious listening. And so many arguments happen in relationship because of misunderstanding. It's incredible. I love doing couple sessions where I get them to practice the tools around conscious listening. And one key thing that always blows me away is, and you can practice this together in your relationship, where you start by setting a timer, right? Eventually you don't need the timer because you have the self-control not to interrupt. But definitely go with the timer first.
Absolutely.
God, when I
Yeah.
first learned this, I was like, 4 minutes is up. No, I have more to say. The ego must die in this process. to share what you're feeling, to share what you're experiencing, and the other person's just listening. And the other person, as you're listening, you're watching the mind that's going, nope, nope, nope. Oh, I'm going to comment on that. That's not right. She got that wrong, blah, 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 right? And you imagine yourself as just having ears all over, and you're actually allowing yourself to receive that there may be truth in what they're saying, and there may not be truth. Once you've done that, and I find 4 minutes is a good time period to share, the person listening then shares back, what I hear you say is, and you repeat back what you heard them say, so that you can get really clear on what they're saying and what they're needing. And you kind of go back and forth. If there's not something right, then the person sharing can clarify, but not bring in any more additional information. Not allowed.
Exactly.
Egos will just go for it. It's all about subduing the ego, really. And then there's clarity on actually what that person's experience is and what they're needing. And really, when it comes to sharing, conscious listening, conscious communication, it's really the practice of getting clear on where that person's at and what they're needing, and can you meet that need or not? And then you just get honest in the relationship, rather than being, again, up in the mind level of arguing and bickering and wasting years in that space. This practice allows you to drop into conscious listening, conscious communication, to get to the core of what is it that you're needing in relationship that currently is causing a contraction.
Mhm.
And can the other person meet it or not? And it's a great way and a very fast track to working out whether you're compatible with your partner. And all of my two previous marriages and relationships, I'm like, wish I had this tool back then.
Exactly. That's so beautiful. Something else that we can use is a talking stick. The person who is holding the stick is speaking. And yeah, I totally agree with you. This thing about I hear you. Thank you for sharing your truth. Here's what I heard you say. This sequence is like a game changer. And the timer as well, a game changer. I do 5 minutes. Sorry, not 4 minutes. But still works. But here is the thing that is really important, is that when Tara is speaking, she wants to be heard. She's not just speaking out of, she wants me to actually listen to what she's saying. And if I'm like in my head already kind of thinking of how I'm going to answer that, how I'm going to reflect it, how I'm going to contradict her, how I'm going to oppose what she's saying, especially if she's saying something that might be challenging, then we're already completely missing the point. It's like when I'm receiving something that might be challenging to be received, I have to breathe, I have to be present, shut down, don't speak, and let her follow up for the four minutes that we have the timer. Once the 4 minutes are over, take a pause, take a deep breath. Okay. Oof. That was fantastic. I love what you're sharing. Or sometimes, but before offering reflection, thank you for sharing your truth. I really appreciate you taking the time to really voice that. I understand it might have been challenging to voice it or something like that, especially on topics that might be challenging, right? And here is what I heard you say. And then I repeat what you said. And then, did I miss anything? Did I miss anything? Is there anything else that you would like to add? And then we can do another round if there is more. And then after that, it might be my turn to share my own truth around that, or my own truth around this topic, and potentially offer some reflect on what has been said. Here is how I feel about it, or here is how it makes me feel. I really feel what you're saying. I really feel the joy that you feel around that. I really feel why it's important to you. So there is a moment for reflecting after that. But the most important thing is just repeat what the person said. And something else that is important, to come back to the body, is like the body language is really important in there. It's like I'm listening on a multidimensional level. What's underneath? What is she really saying? What is the emotion contained? What's the nature of her body language? Is she communicating from a place that is really open and happy and radiating, or is there contraction or fear? Is her voice trembling and all that? So really listening on a multidimensional level.
Mm. And yeah, and I think that being genuine in that as well. So part of that multi-dimension, I mean, just going to have a vulnerable sharing here, but when I first practiced this with tantra with my previous husband, it was the way that the ego came in was gnarly. It would be like, what I heard you say is you don't care about me, you don't have time for me, and that you don't think I'm good enough. And he's like, what? So
Yeah.
like you genuinely want to show up for your relationship holding love as the intention, even if at periods you want to destroy your partner because there's anger there. It's like, yes, allow yourself to feel that anger for sure. Anger is a very important emotion to feel in relationship, to see what's beneath that, right? What's out of alignment. But if we're just caught in the anger and we're not able to rise above it, then it's just going to be mind ego explosion. So the rising above it comes back to that tantric relationship marriage, which is that we're here for a purpose. We're here to grow in our own beings and to grow this relationship container as part of our expansion and liberation and awakening. Relationships are the fastest path to liberation because they push all the buttons and they bring the most joyous, magnetic, sensual experiences in life as well. So keeping that perspective as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. The reason why we do that, the reason why we practice intentional communication, the active listening or conscious listening is only one small aspect of the communication tools that we use, right? But just for this one and the conscious communication tools altogether, it is really to create safety in the communication. It's like if Tara again is sharing something and then I enter into reactive mode and counterattack or fight or get triggered or get angry, then the safety is compromised. And if the safety is compromised, she's no longer going to share her truth with me, which goes completely against what I want. I want her to be open to me. So I have to create safety, and the same the other way around. The moment we get vulnerable, and right now we are talking about shadows, but it could be conscious listening to the joy, to the beauty, to the love, right? Which is most of our communication. But right now, because of the in the audience probably those are the challenges that you might be facing, is like escalation into fighting and attacking each other or blaming each other or so on. It's like it's really important to create safety of communication in the relationship. So the safety as a base is going to be created if both partners have the space to share what's alive for them. It's like if one person has to shut down by fear of triggering the other person, then eventually we stop communicating, then we withhold and we bring all that into the bedroom, into the lovemaking, into all aspects of life, where there is a big part of that person that I'm not seeing because I'm not creating the safety for that person. I want Tara to feel safe with me anytime, all the time, right? So this is why the conscious listening is really an important piece in this puzzle, and it's going to create the chemistry that we want to have together.
Yeah, and it is. It's like the two people having that intention and holding that for each other, right? Of that
Exactly.
safety. And we're not going to be perfect at it. And I remember a few times, I think it's happened twice now, where you've been sharing with me and my mind's going, that's not true, that's not true, that's not true. And then I'll start to counteract. So you're like, are you serious? Like that did not happen. And then you just said, I'm just, what did you say? I am just expressing right now and need to be heard. I'm like, oh, fair enough. Totally fair enough. And then it happened vice versa. And I'm like, I just need for you to listen to me right now. And you're like, yep, okay. So
Exactly.
we also, by when we're feeling that the other person isn't consciously communicating, we can call them on it and say, hey, you're going into like blaming and shaming me right now. I'm not open to that. So that shuts down that pathway. Or, hey, you're interrupting me. I just need to be listened to right now. So that's how so yes, the timer, but we haven't used a timer this round of our relationship. I think we did the first round
Hmm.
because the level of mastery now, and there's a knowing in ourselves that if the other person isn't meeting us, we'll call them on it.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. The one thing that you mentioned right now about warning the person, right? If there is something that is alive, uh, before you start sharing, if I'm the one sharing and I have something sensitive to share with Tara, I'm going to warn her before starting to speak. Listen, right now I'm in a little bit triggered by something that has been going on or happening. So just let me speak for 5 minutes. I know that I'm a bit in shadow zone right now. I'm not being the most mature self. I'm most like yourself, but it will really help me voice. And Tara, you did that one time, a couple of times to me as well. It's like you go like, listen, right now I have a contraction in my field. I know that it's my little girl feeling a little bit afraid or something like that. I'm just going to voice it. And then you voice it and then you go like, okay, it's gone. Do you need any reflection? No, it's done. So what I hear you say, da, 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 and we're done. And the conversation on this topic is over, which is really, really beautiful because it allows us to really resolve things at a much higher speed, right?
Absolutely. And I think the point that you're making also links to the next discussion point, which is emotional maturity and self-regulation.
Oh
And
my
so
God.
this is probably, I think, for all of us, the top non-negotiable in relationship
Yes,
is that, that your partner needs to be able to hold their own emotional body and process that in a way that they can resolve internally and not just through the relationship. Otherwise, the relationship's just exhausting
oh my God.
for both sides. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, and it doesn't mean that we don't emotionally process together, but it just means that even when we're together in like a challenging conversation or experience, I'm aware that I'm holding my emotional body in that moment as I'm feeling whatever it is, fear, pain, frustration, sadness coming up. And in doing so, it enables me to stay in connection with you when we're in process rather than causing separation and that feeling when you're having a conversation but you're in separation. And
Absolutely.
we haven't done that this
No,
time.
exactly. We
Stay
are
connected.
navigating this time with so much ease and flow. It's like
Mhm.
we've got all these tools now, but we don't need to use them anymore.
Yeah.
In a lot of it, I mean, we are bragging here a little bit, but it's the truth. There is a moment where we enter into this free flow, and everything becomes easier and easier, and it's just part of what we are experiencing right now because of this level of maturity. The on the topic of emotional maturity, what comes to mind to me is that if I'm emotionally mature, I want to be able to self-reflect. I want to be able to take responsibility for my emotions, for my emotional state. I
Mhm.
want to be accountable. It means that I I have something going on into my field very often that has nothing to do with this woman. And so if I bring that into the relationship, if I project it, it's going to maybe create absolutely the opposite of what I want. It's going to create a shadow ripple effect. So I'm going to be in a way you can call that shadow dumping. I'm like, blah, 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 blah. And before we know it, she's frustrated or triggered. And again, it's not something that has been happening much in this wave of our relationship. So we have been navigating it really well. But it's something to understand. It is that if you are a man or if you are a woman and you're listening to this podcast, what I encourage you to do next time you have an emotion coming to the surface, instead of projecting that on the partner and blaming the partner for that emotion, we go like, how we respond to life is our responsibility. My emotional state is my responsibility. So it's exactly what Tara mentioned in the beginning of this topic. It is that right now, what we decide or what the way we navigate shadow emotional mastery or shadow mastery, it is by deciding to process probably 80% of what comes up to the surface, mostly by ourselves. There is most of what comes into my field. I go like, I don't need Tara to solve that for me. I don't need her help. I don't need her support. I'm going to go into the jungle. I'm going to scream a little bit, play under the waterfalls for a moment, and then I'm going to release that. And if there is something that is still left there that requires to bring it to the relationship, then we're going to might say, well, listen, I've been processing this thing and it's still in my field. Here's what I notice. Here is a pattern that I notice in our connection, something that might be present. And then we bring it to the relationship and we find ways of changing through offering a request or offering a behavior change or something that is going to be very specific to what we want to solve that specific issue. But I must say, probably in the 4 or 5 months almost that we have been relating now, connecting, it's like I didn't really encounter maybe once or twice something that I go like, well, it's important to bring it to the relationship. But otherwise, it has been just like, well, I'm feeling a bit triggered by that today, or and then I burn, play some drum, use my trishula to destroy the shadows, and then before we know it, everything is done. And what I noticed about you, Tara, is as well that from the start, when we started connecting like a few years back, it's like I noticed that that was a skill that was already very present in your field. You were self-processing, you were solo processing a lot of the stuff. And then when something was still remaining in the field, you would come to me. Sometimes you would get triggered by something and I would not even see it. I would not even know that this was in the field. You would come back to me with like, okay, it has been solved. We don't need to talk about it, digest it. And this is one of the superpowers. I would say that if I encourage you to process probably 80% of the triggers that might be coming to the surface just by yourself. Don't bring your partner into it. They don't even need to know about it. And yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so next one we're going to speak into is prioritization of pleasure.
Yes.
And this is a lot around the magnetism as well, right? Is in the spiritual world there is a lot of focus on that last point, emotional maturity, because it's such a big deal to have emotional maturity in our lives. But once we've got that foundation of emotional maturity, what happens is that then actually we're more clear and open to receive pleasure. That's why we're always saying pain and pleasure are the two sides of the same coin. And emotional maturity is really having the capacity to be with whatever your emotions and like experiences are and the sensations in your body, and to sit with that and feel that. Because anytime we go into the mind or the conversation without feeling it, it's just an avoidance of pain. But once we have a level of comfortability in feeling pain and prioritizing that, then what actually happens is our capacity to be with pleasure in our experiences and pleasure in us as sensations also grows. And so
Absolutely.
the life shifts from being this like heaviness of the emotional body that we've just been suppressing for a lifetime into expanding into more pleasure.
I love experiencing pleasure with you, Tara. In so many ways and so many dimensions. It's precisely one of the core elements that allows us to dive deeper into pleasure is precisely the fact that there is lots of safety. So instead of being in a state of contraction, instead of being like, okay, my God, what's going to happen? We're like so relaxed into each other's presence. And then the flow of pleasures keeps expanding. And the idea of expanding our pleasure capacity is really one of the most beautiful things that we can imagine. Like right now, there is so much taboo around pleasure, sex, and sensuality, and all of that. So what we want is to remove the taboos, remove all the shame, remove all the guilt that might be associated with pleasure. If you go like to somebody and I say, would you like to experience more pleasure in your life? They go like, oh God, what are you talking about? I'm not sure if this is allowed, right? There is a whole culture in the Western world of trying to suppress pleasure because pleasure is dangerous. And so we want to enter back into this space of sensuality, both men and women, and be able to navigate it from that place. And a question that I ask myself when we are in interaction is how much pleasure are we experiencing right now? How can we expand our pleasure capacity? What else can we do that is going to expand that? Oh, we need some oils. We need some flavors. We need some, we need to be in nature, or we need to go to the spa to be in a hot spring or hot pool. We need to, in the way I touch you or in the way you touch me, it's all like expanding each other's pleasure capacity. and it's a beautiful way of navigating the relationship. And the question is like, how much pleasure can you take? How can you? And another question, if you're not in a relationship right now, it doesn't mean that you cannot experience pleasure. Of course, it's like you go like, does that give me pleasure in the choice that we make every day? That's one of the questions that I ask myself. Does that give me pleasure? Is it fun? Does that give me satisfaction? If it's not pleasurable, then fuck it. Basically
Yeah.
that's something that we can do. And I think it's a beautiful exploration. Instead of aiming for more money, more abundance, more, you can go like, aim for more pleasure and do that for a week and see what happens.
I love that. I love how you called that pleasure choices as well, because it applies in the bedroom and out of the bedroom.
For
So
sure.
you're not going to be experiencing high levels of pleasure in the bedroom if outside of the bedroom you're just working the 9 to 5 grind. You're going to get home exhausted and aren't going to feel that aliveness and energy for that.
For sure.
Whereas what I love about the path of Tantra, and for me it's actually the path to awakening, is to keep choosing what expands us, what lights us up, which makes us feel great. And that's really fucking scary to do, because we've grown up in a society that has completely shut down our connection, yes, with our pain, but equally with our pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
If people were in touch with truly with their pleasure and their experience and sensation around pleasure, they probably would have like half the world quit their jobs and be like, what the fuck am I doing?
Absolutely.
Living to what? Finally be able to retire at 65 or 70. So
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like that's when you're following pleasure. And if you haven't done our Align online course, definitely check that out. It's all about how to align yourself with pleasure. And it sounds all like fun and it's amazing. And it's like, it's challenging, because it means that you have to actually let go of work, relationships, living situations, friendships, habits that aren't bringing you pleasure in your life. But
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's one of the quickest paths to expansion.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you're right there, you wonder where to start, just breathe. When we come to presence, it's like, if I'm a bit tense and I want to expand my pleasure potential, when I close my eyes, take a deep breath and expand, start moving my body, and then that's by itself is going to already expand my ability to be present in the pleasure. Hey, listen, Tara, we are at 47 minutes in the podcast, and there is a few questions. I mean, we can cover the other
Right, let me
topics. I'll let you.
quickly go to questions. I feel like we've answered all of them. What are some practices in and out of the bedroom to help with this? So we've spoken into them. First one for presence is to really, when you're together, create that space and be attentive with your partner and not in the mind.
Mm-hmm.
Second practice was around magnetism. And that's a simple 5 things I love about you, right? Start focusing on gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
One was with conscious communication. You can use the timer, 4 to 5 minutes, one person speaking, one person listening, and then the other, once they've listened, they say, what I hear you saying is, and you get really clear on that. The next thing was emotional maturity, and that's around, really committing to a self practice. And look at Instagram, my page, Raven's page, Academy page. We talk a lot about that, right? That emotional maturity. And then with prioritizing pleasure, really start expanding your pleasure potential. And a lot of that is coming into the moment, coming into the body, and feeling what would feel good right now, what would feel expansive right now. So there's some key practices. So the 2 questions that we have is, the first one is how to do this when both people are exhausted after work and children. So we'll start with that one.
Yeah. You want me to answer?
Go for it.
So, yeah. Okay. So when 2 people are exhausted, which is something that happens in the Western world, right? It's like probably I don't know, I heard some statistic like 50, 60% of men are too tired to have sex when they come back home in the UK, for instance. So those are the statistics. And the reason why is because the Western world and the way we function is really enslaving our human mind and our human freedom. This is why we need to go on holidays to recover and to regenerate. So it is a battle for survival of your relationship, for the fun of your relationship. So if you're both exhausted when you come back from work and the children and everything, you need to go to battle. You need to go to battle to create space for your relationship and for romantic time. And so the battle is on the scheduler, right? It's like you have everything scheduled. You know that every day it's just like really everything is really well organized and planned. You need to put somewhere in the calendar, in your scheduler, you need to put some time for romantic time. And this is what we're doing, Tara and myself. You know, we are both very busy beings. We both have mission. We both have that. And what we do is like, you know, Wednesday, that's it. That's tantric dates. Sunday or Saturday, we have another window, and those are the ones that are scheduled. And if we didn't do that, um, you know, our relationship might potentially not grow the way it's expanding. We might miss lots of windows because there would be always a reason not to meet. There would be other things or the distractions, other people wanting to see us. So quite a few times when Tara receives an invitation to do something on Wednesday, she said, "No, I have my tantric date with my Shiva," right? And the same for me. So only a few times, you know, we had to reschedule for different reasons, but basically having that in the calendar over there is really important. So if you don't see the moment, you don't see time in your schedule, in your week when to do that, create that time. It's really important. This is a matter of survival for your relationship. A relationship that doesn't have sensuality and connection and intimacy and romance eventually dies out. It's like we enter into comfort sinking, we relax into that, we become really complacent with all of that. So I encourage you to really go to battle, do whatever it takes, talk to your partner, listen, we need to do something about it, and be like, non-negotiable, this is a request, it needs to happen, or our relationship is going to collapse. And yeah, put your heart and soul. Be passionate about it. Be passionate about defending your relationship. This is a matter of life and death. You know, it's something really important that everybody around you will benefit from. So take time for your romantic energy. Take time for having sex with your partner, for having juicy explorations. Go on holidays. Do something, whether it's on Saturday, the whole day, or 1 hour in the evening sometime. But put it in the schedule as something that is high priority.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think there's micro ways of doing that and macro ways of doing that. So macro ways are going on a holiday, like good quality time out together, and during the week having 2 date nights a week, let's say. And in those date nights, that does not include watching Netflix, you know, talking about your day all day long or working on a project together. It's like you're out of the mind, you're in the body, and you're in romance zone. And sometimes we'll go to spa and do like spa, sauna, cold plunge. Often Shiva, like, well, pretty much every time makes a fire, sets out a bed under the stars, and we'll do tantric ritual and make love under the stars. And then there's the micro moments, and the micro moments are what we've been speaking into about, you know, about conscious communication and magnetism and presence, of just how you relate to each other through the day. And that first practice of like being grateful and appreciative and adoring in our communication of gratitude throughout the day is an amazing relationship prioritization that doesn't take any extra time, because you're just going about your day. You're just changing the way that you speak to each other into something that's positive and stimulating and fulfilling.
Mm-hmm. So beautiful.
Yeah. And then the other question that we haven't answered is, what's been the hardest part of navigating relationships, and what's your advice to navigate that through?
Okay, so I'm going to talk for myself, right? Self-reflecting. What for me I found has been the greatest challenge, and it's not a problem. It's not hard. It's a challenge, and it's exciting to navigate. Is being able to tune inside of me into what is the frequency that I want to bring into the relationship, right? So inside of me, I can notice that there are behaviors, attitudes, words, mindsets that are immature, and then other mindsets that are going to be mature. I can be a king, or I can be a little wounded child, right? Or I can be in a place where I'm not master of my emotions. I'm being reactive to things. I'm not being conscious, not being present, and all that. So I've got a whole. Let me just show you one chart over here. You probably cannot see it like that, but over here on one side you have immature behaviors, and then you have the complementary over here, the opposite, which are mature behaviors. So this is a very simple, way of looking at it. Of course, all that is in my mind. But for instance, if I'm self-defeating, then I shift to power. If I'm victimizing, I go into empowered. If I'm dominant and controlling, I go into freeing and spacious. So mastering that and being able to tune into the frequency that I want to go, so that I manifest a mature Shiva, not just for this woman, but for life in general. But in relationships, that's the place where this gets tested, because there is plenty of times where I go, it's like this little victimized boy, wounded, that wants to come to the surface. What about me? And I go like, I love you. You're beautiful. Let's go and talk about this later. You and I, we're going to have a conversation, but Tara is not really, that's not going to glorify our relationship. So sometimes, sometimes she will be like, oh, that's sweet, that's kind, that's something. Every now and then it can come to the surface, immaturity, shadows. But I would say probably 90%, 95% of the time, I want to be in my embodied king. I want to be a lover. I want to be a creator. I want to be a fool sometimes, but from a place of maturity. So for me, that has been I would say, the number one challenge, exciting challenge that I've been diving into, shifting between those immature and mature polarity. What about you, Tara?
Love that. Yeah, so essentially out of the ones that we spoke into, your challenge or your excitement with that challenge is emotional maturity, right?
Exactly. Yes.
I would say that for me, it's been around conscious communication has been my biggest challenge in relationship, because of my upbringing and the experiences that I had. My ability to communicate what I was feeling has always been felt like walking into a lion's den where I'm about to get torn apart. So yeah, just to be able to trust my own body and actually communicate when things are coming up in the moment as much as possible, that's definitely been my biggest challenge, which I've worked on for years using all of these tools. But in the relationship now with you has been the most fully expressed I've ever been, and it's been absolutely fucking liberating to just be myself and not modify myself, because I'm constantly trying to like risk assess whether my partner's going to be upset with me, that fear of losing love, the abandonment wound. Whereas with you, I feel so loved and so chosen and so safe. And you're constantly supporting that through what you share with me when I'm expressing myself, that I just feel safe to be myself, all of me. And through that, it's always like the deepest wound in relationship is also the deepest liberation for ourselves. And through that, I'm learning to trust myself
Oh,
on a whole new layer.
oh, that touches me so much. I had no idea this was your greatest challenge. So you were learning something every day. That really brings tears to my eyes, baby. I can feel how much this must expand you and give you a sense of safety. And I love that you're being truthful to yourself. This is like, it turns me on so much. Oh my God. Yeah, beautiful.
Thanks, darling. Well, so just for those people who saw the post, the 3 topics that we haven't spoken into is playfulness, but really this is around the pleasure thing. And Shiva and I, our little boys and little girls, have so much fun together. So that's really linked to pleasure. Sovereignty, we've spoken into around emotional maturity, and just, and also having your own lives as well is key in that. And then the last point we were going to speak into is devotion and rituals. And that's what we've also already spoken into with like date nights and presence, where when you're coming to connect with each other, light a candle. If you have if you have an altar in the space, then, light up your altar, light some incense, play some music, and create a devotional space, an intentional space for when you're connecting with each other.
Brilliant. We could do that the whole day, baby.
Yeah. We've had one more question come through, which
Yes.
I'd like to answer.
Yes.
How to restore appetite in relationship. How to restore appetite in relationship.
Start with small steps, right? It's like if again, it's a matter of prioritizing and scheduling time for that or taking time for that. So what I encourage you to do is, if, for instance, the appetite, the sexual appetite or erotic appetite or sensual appetite is kind of disappeared out of your relationship, then the moment you start creating a clear space for it, and you take the risk to engage into that space, that might feel a little bit uncomfortable in the beginning, because it's kind of a scary space if it's something that hasn't been in your field for a while. Then starting with really small steps. And what I encourage you to do as well is take a session with this woman or with myself, receive some help or some guidance on how to take the first steps. Because having the container, sometimes I see couples coming to me and they haven't been intimate for a long, long time. Like, take them down into the jungle and we do a couple of rituals, and within an hour they are like fully back in love with each other. It's like reactivating, removing the traumas, removing the fears or the objections or the rejections that they have been receiving in each other's field. So creating a clear space really works. And these are initiations that we can bring into your life, both Tara and myself. And that works really well. And what I want to tell you is that there is hope, okay? You can reactivate that even if it feels it's gone. No, it's not gone. It's just a little bit sleepy right now. And talk to your partner, mention it, again, conquer that space again. And it's really worth it. You deserve to be loved. You deserve to have lots of sensuality, pleasure, sex, juicy sex in your life. Don't let it go. Fight for it.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that to close. Thank you, babe.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
So a few things to close. We'll be back next week doing a live as well, talking on another topic that we'll be sharing on social media on Monday. And if you haven't taken our Tantra 101 freebie, it's an ebook that gets emailed to you over 8 days, please do. It covers a lot of these topics and also gives you tools. We'll also put Shiva's website. There is libraries of information on his website that you can go through, and his YouTube channel as well, which he documents. And reach out if you need any support. Pass this on to a friend if you think it may support them as well. And we'll see you next week. Thank you, Shiva, for being here and sharing your wisdom. I'm so glad everyone got to hear your wisdom.
It's such a pleasure to share that with you. And yes, feel free to reach out. I love receiving questions. I might not answer everything in detail, but knowing where you're at is really important to me, so that we can tune into the audience and we can tune into the next week's podcast, right? Next week's conversation.
Absolutely.
Sarah, you're amazing. Thank you for opening the space to receive me in that. And thank you to the Embodied Awakening Academy for being such an incredible platform and bringing all this juicy content into life. I love you all. You're doing an amazing work, especially you, Raven, and Métis over there. We love you.
Love you all. Bye.
Bye.